guys. So I think the direction for this panel, and I do want to bring this kind of diverse panel here from the different parts of the ecosystem. Just I want to hear the perspective. You know, we all come to this journey, and we all have different, I guess, interests, different perspective, and different engagement, and where we are may not be the same. So this is the reason why we want to bring this panel. And to see, you know, you've heard a lot from the previous panels on all the different capabilities, opportunities, some great use cases, but what are the reality of revenue from your own perspective, from where you're coming from? So I guess the first question for the panel is, where is the real revenue being generated today across API, messaging, and RCS? And what actually is scaling versus what is still stuck in pilots or trials. Maybe we'll start with Brian, and I'll just kind of come back to Sarah. Yeah.
For us on the RCS side, and we're very focused on kind of the RCS experience at Native Message, it's really about the outcomes. And really where we're seeing where we can prove outcomes to the brands, to the enterprises, we're seeing monetization. When we go in and we talk to a customer, it's a lot about what can RCS do that SMS couldn't, right? And when we're seeing some very innovative use cases, we have a customer in the media industry. They send out content, editorial content. They're seeing 200, 300% daily or increases on a daily perspective of people engaging with that content versus SMS. So right there, right, we're showing value. We're able to show the monetization. I think where things are stuck is a little bit on the kind of this whole deterministic versus probabilistic on the LLM side of in AI, where right when you're talking to a brand, they want a very defined outcome. X happens. I want to see Y. When we start getting into AI and some of the agentic stuff, right, it's still some work to be done there, I think.
Eddie?
So
you're coming from the network API
from
side?
network API standpoint. This has been a business for years. Twilio does 36 billion API calls a day. It's a $12.6 billion business today, right? John Morrow, my chief product officer, when he left T-Mobile, was doing 500 million API calls a month. So it's there. It's not new. It's been there. Mark has been in his space for many, many years. So the money is being spent. Carriers are using it. It's being regulated into more of an existence. Chimera is trying to normalize it, right? Aduna is trying to build a huge aggregation layer. So it's here today. It's now running. The problem is we don't have a demand problem. We have a supply problem, right? So I'm trying to fix the supply problem. So, I mean, it's here. It's running.
The demand is there.
People are making money. Yeah, the demand is there.
Okay. So fix the supply problem, and we're
fixing the supply problem.
Okay.
And that's what we're working on.
Okay. Mark?
Shall I just disagree for shits and giggles?
We can fight if you
sure,
want.
Sure.
Right.
No, Eddie and I are friends. No, look, I totally agree, right? So from the industry's doing so well. I was acquired last year, right? So they didn't acquire vaporware, they acquired real customers. So to Eddie's point, banks are signing multi-year contracts still. And it is still the banking sector, financial services sector that market by market are the leaders for sure. And revenues continue to grow month on month. So from that perspective, it's great. What's slowing it down? Chimera. There you are. Ooh, dodgy, right? Why is it slowing it down? So a lot of operators had already launched an API of some description, predominantly SIM swap, and you're not allowed to talk yet, right? And what we're seeing is you've got operators that have already launched, they've got revenues flowing, and this thing called a standardization has come into the market. And it's slower, right? So there's a UK operator that was running at about 80 milliseconds to do a SIM swap. If you use the Chimera standard, that takes it up to 800 milliseconds. So when you then take that back into your customer base and say, hey, we need you to switch to this great thing called a standard, And I'm not against standard, by the way. I'm just telling you for fact what the industry's, what's going on. You know, the banks and everybody are going, well, why do we need to change, right? It's not cheaper, it's not faster, it's slowing the process down. So, you know, and it's not better, right? So I think as much as, yes, I'm very much for standardization, the people that write these things in closed rooms when they eat pizza and drink beer, they've got to go and out to the real world, right? And understand the impact of that standardization.
Yeah. But before I get to Sarah, I think that we heard about the enterprise. Maybe one answer to that, one reason for that is that the globalization. Like maybe we do need standard because otherwise we can't get a global.
There is a standard.
No,
This is the problem. So Dito launched with 6 versions of Number Verify. It's not up to the carrier, it's up to the brand, because they're the ones spending the money. And you're 100% right. When Camara Number Verify is 4 seconds and SNA is 20 milliseconds, and it's 2 calls versus 16, where do you think the brands are going to go?
Okay. I think we're probably going to get questions on that one, but I want to get to Sarah's perspective because you come from the CSPs, you address the SMBs, and I don't know what you think about all this RCS and API and where you're coming from, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Sure. So if anybody's unfamiliar with easy texting, we have about over 20,000 active customers sending on all 3 current channels, toll-free, 10DLC, short code, and our customer base that we support is everything from the small business owner, sole proprietor, all the way up through an enterprise. So we have a wide customer base and use cases across the board. What I am seeing and experiencing from a CSP standpoint is that the innovation is outpacing the operational infrastructure. And they're really, especially when I think about RCS, is we're stuck in two points of awareness and onboarding. So even for getting out that awareness to RCS to our own customers, what I have been pushing for a long time is that we need to, as easy texting, be communicating to our own customers over the RCS channel. And we started the conversation this time last year with multiple different providers, and just now we are like on the very edge of actually going live with our own agent. So it's taken a very long time to get ourselves approved, working in the messaging space. We actually know what we should be doing and have all the things in place. So with that being said, one, we need to increase the awareness with brands that can use RCS. And then 2, just the scaling of that onboarding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So maybe to follow up on that question, back to Brian, is scaling the RCS. How do we do that? Where do we begin to solve that problem? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it gets back to the outcomes, and there's definitely some issues around awareness and increasing the speed. And I know everyone in the industry is trying to make that go faster from an onboarding perspective. But I think when we're going to be able to tell you the outcomes to hopefully the session-based pricing here in some point in the future, I think the ROI equation becomes very simple then, right? You can approach a brand, approach an enterprise on, hey, here are these, we're not talking about just SMS to RCS shift. We're talking about here are net new use cases that you can enable in your business that were never available before. And I'll give you a perfect example. We had a service provider approach us, right? When someone wants to reschedule for an appointment, they go to Google, they do a Google search, and then they click on an ad, and they find the phone number and they call to reschedule or cancel an appointment. Well, that's costing a cost per click to that company every time someone wants. So it's extra operational cost, right? Well, by sending out a proactive RCS, they can put a reschedule, they can put a cancel appointment in there for much cheaper. So now you're saving money. So I think it's finding what those kind of outcome-based solutions look like, right? Tying them back to a real ROI is what's going to help a lot of the RCS stuff scale and really utilize the services and the pieces of the features of the technology that we've all been craving for years and years.
Right. So on that note, also maybe this is a question to both you, Eddie, you and Mark, around scaling. And I mean, I don't know if it's as simple as a supply issue. I mean, if you fix a supply issue, are we in nirvana? The question on the network API, we talk about the supply issue that we
there's
fixed
1,000 mobile operators out there.
I mean,
33 have launched.
yes. So
We have a supply problem.
yeah, but I don't know whether we can fix that problem.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
That's why my company exists.
Okay.
You can
Fair
fix
enough.
the problem. The problem is the days of spending millions and millions of dollars, of billions of dollars on network hardware are over. The carriers have no more money. They spent $331 billion on 5G in the United States and over $1 trillion globally. To roll out network APIs, this NAS, they're projecting, and I got the number, I think Dario got the number somewhere, projecting another $45 billion. This money does not exist. It's not coming. You can't create this anymore, right? So you have to come up with a solution. If 97% of the revenue that is being spent on network APIs are on network authentication APIs, not QoD, QoS, network slicing, none of that garbage, which is a tiny fraction of the money being spent, even though people think it's going to be huge. All right, I'm like a bank robber. I go where the money is. So I rob the bank. I don't rob the grocery store. I rob the bank. So I'm focused on network authentication APIs only. So I deliver a solution, a full monetization platform, plug-in, any cloud. This is not trying to be a sales pitch, by the way, to a mobile operator that gets them up quickly, right? So Dito signed on September 18th, launched on November 15th with 18 APIs. They're going to officially roll out, because they have to meet a June date for the Filipino market, they'll have all 47 APIs. So it has to be quick, easy, simple to get these carriers from point A to point B. Now, you could be Vodafone, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and build your own platform and spend millions and millions of dollars. That's your choice. You could do that. But there's still 967 other operators.
Well, that's the question, right? I mean, we still have to go through the 900 over operators to launch.
What do you think I do every day?
Yeah, but how much? I mean, this is like my question. That where do you how many? I mean, like, how do you scale that?
Regulation.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. I agree with you.
First time in my career, I love the
Yeah.
regulators. Right?
How do you scale that?
You scale that by building.
Maybe in a year from now.
In a year from now, I'll be I'm more than 10 now, and in a year from now, hopefully I'll be more than 50. Right?
We still have 900 to go. That's my point.
But if you do it quickly, if you're capable of doing it quickly, and you're capable of getting them up, and you're capable of future-proofing them, giving them all the Chimera APIs on the latest version, giving them the only platform in the world that is TS43 certified compliant, right? And giving them all the APIs they could ever want, and adding more like branded calling and direct carrier billing, and constantly keeping it. Carriers can focus on what they're good at, and we'll focus on what we're good at, and we'll all make money. That's what you do. And you bring the demand immediately. So having a global partnership with Twilio brings the demand immediately, right? Dealing with the other aggregators brings the demand immediately. So it's the process of getting from point A to point B quickly. Because if you sit around and you try to install big hunking equipment, NEFs and SCEFs, you'll be a year out and you'll still be working in the cloud. And nothing's been done. Right? So it's all about time to market. It's all about getting them from point A to point B to help companies actually expose the APIs and then consume them.
Mark?
I'm going to buy Eddie's platform, I think. Sounds really good. See, look, the other thing, we don't talk about the success enough. Okay, so we keep talking about standardization, which I said is a great thing. But I think there's a lot of mobile operators out there that still sit on the fence, right? Because they don't see the money. Whereas, as Eddie's point at the beginning, there's hundreds of millions of API revenue already been spent today, right? But we don't talk about it, we don't advertise it. And I think if we shouted about the use cases that are already in play today, we shouted about the revenue, it would speed up the other operators coming to the table. But look, we're dealing with mobile operators, they're slow. it is what it is, right? I mean, question to you, Matt, how quick do you think it can happen?
I don't know. I mean, no, that's a $1 million question.
Okay, you live in Malaysia, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we signed YTL.
Yes, you did?
Last week.
Yes.
YTL's launching Camaro Number Verify this week, certified.
So they're one of the faster one, I have to say. Yeah.
But that's my point.
Yeah.
You can make it fast. You just have to want to do it.
The
Just
other
send
three
Eddie.
are a bit slow, yes.
What?
The other three operators there are a bit slow.
No, but you understand my point? They signed a document that they said they were going to have it ready by the end of the month in November, whatever, October. They signed out, right? They took them from then to last week to sign the contract. Trust me. That's how long it took. But my guys were already building the platform for them, getting them ready. So next week they'll get certified on the 29th.
No, I agree with you. I think it's an awesome, achievement. I mean, to get, and I think hopefully that.
But Mark's 100% right. We got to talk about the exciting things that's happening in the market today.
Right.
You got to talk about I mean, we could talk about network authentication till we're blue in the face, but there's a lot of positives, and then there's a lot of horror stories, right? And and network authentication fixes that. But these guys who are working on RCS are still seeing similar challenges, right? Dealing with operators, getting approvals, and et cetera.
Gotcha. No, go ahead.
Look, I was just going to say, been doing this for a long time. I think that's why I've got grey hair and Eddie's got not much hair.
No hair.
But what I've seen over the last probably 24 months is a massive shift, right? Because all of a sudden we're in this room and we're collaborating. And we haven't done that for a long, long time, right? We've looked at each other as competitors. I had the pleasure of being with the guys at Aduna last week in Madrid. The room was packed full of people all wanting to work together, right?
Yeah.
And that, Matt, is going to help drive things forward. Eddie and I are not competitors, right? We work together, same as a lot of other people in this room. And the more we can do that, the faster things will get done.
Okay. So Sarah, I have a different question for you. You came from the compliance world, and you've seen how you deal with enterprise SMS, 10DLC, registry compliance. If you were to have a view of what works in enterprise SMS and translate that, if once you adopt RCS and API, and what are the learning things? What are the learning, I guess, that we can, do better when we launch RCS and API based on your compliance experience in the enterprise, A2P SMS? Yeah. What do you want to see happen versus what do you not want the industry to repeat? Yeah.
Well, when I think about RCS, I've seen very little brands in the wild actually that I interact with on my own. But what I have seen is that even with enterprise level, like I'm thinking airlines, insurance companies, they're on board and they're using an RCS agent, but it's actually not a really rich experience. Like you have the branded logo, you have the details behind it, but then you're in the messaging and it's still very similar to like SMS. And it's like, how did they not, incorporate the rich features, the easy carousel buttons? It's an interesting, I guess, perception that I have from seeing what RCS is capable of and what I've actually interacted with. It's like they have not fully adopted all the features that RCS can do. And so I don't know. I would love to see from a consumer perspective that if somebody launches on RCS, they're using it as a way of not just having translate everything they were doing with SMS and just doing it on RCS agent. They need to ensure that they're actually using action, not just like, okay, this is now we're just communicating the same that I did over SMS. I actually want to be able to have action and results within the RCS agent.
Right. And so maybe back to Brian, kind of bring it home. I mean, if we were to make some, if you want to have the industry make some changes, and what do we have to do to deliver a scalable RCS? What would you like, either the operators, the partners, the ecosystem to change or to do more or to do better? Yeah.
I think onboarding, right? Being able to get the agents up. We talk to brands, we talk to enterprises, we get a lot of excitement. And there's paths in parallel. You start working, you start building things out, or they start building it out on a platform like ours. But getting them to launch and getting through that. So just making that smooth. And it's going to happen, right? It's just a matter, I know everyone's working very hard to make that happen, and it will over time. The awareness perspective, right? You know, we go in and we talk to many CMOs, CEOs, and they don't even realize that this is sitting on their device, right? Now, I know there's people selling in over from the SMS side, but this touches so many different parts of the organization and functions of the organization where they don't realize that this is capable, and now they have this new avenue in order to, you know, take this digital transformation or these digital workflows and move it. I do think that Roddy from Texture ID did touch on something in his, that the agentic world and what's going on there, and kind of this whole agentic zero trust is going to be something that I think we're going to see more and more of over the next 12 months. You know, Salesforce came out and said, hey, we're done with the UI, right? This headless 360 that they announced. So all of a sudden, everyone's CRM on top of Salesforce is now essentially going to be exposed through these agentic workflows. And what is there, you know, stopping kind of this kind of chain of command or chain of integrity of kind of messaging as it goes through. So I think something in that regard needs to kind of be visible, at least going forward.
Can I just say something about RCS?
Yes.
You're a network
Well,
API
I
guy now, Eddie.
I know, but I have to. So I ran the RCS business at LivePerson, and I ran the RCS business at Mavenir. And there's a gentleman back there by the name of James Brown that everybody needs to go talk to. Because what people don't understand is what you can do with an app, you can do within RCS. And we created, at LivePerson, we created a Yellow Page app. We did everything from a bidding engine to location to acceptance to payment, everything. And if brands take advantage of the capabilities of RCS, is what you're saying, is just doing like a, you know, a simple SMS, they're missing out the power of RCS. And I would recommend anybody in here talk to this guy, because when he was way ahead of everybody when I was at LivePerson, showing me some great stuff. James Brown worked with me closely at LivePerson, building this entire workflow for the German Yellow Pages, and we did it for, we were doing it for Yell in the UK. It is so powerful as a true messaging app. If you don't take advantage of it and you just simply just move your SMS over to RCS, you are losing out massively. And we had AI in RCS long before anybody even knew the word AI at LivePerson. So I'm just saying that there's a great opportunity here that I think people are going to be missing out on if they don't take advantage of it.
Yeah, so we are running out of time. And so I don't want to stop people from, I guess lunch is next. Okay. And so, so with that, on that note, thank you guys for this engaging conversation.